well clear of the edge of platform 4.
Right, so yeah, I've been a bit busy, so I'm recording this at the station. Hopefully it's not too loud. But this is probably one of the weirdest services in the UK, and its trains aren't very well liked. Connecting both sides of the capital's river, this is Thameslink. Alright, let's go through a quick history of how London got its north-south railway. Back in the 1800 whatevers, all these random rich people were building railways like crazy. However, in London, there was one important rule. Trains couldn't cross a city. People feared they would ruin the historic centre, so in London, we got a lot of separate stations for railways going in specific directions. As the city grew, it became sort of unpleasant to be in the city, so everyone decided that they should move out to the countryside, where it was nice and green. Oh wait, everyone's done that. So yeah, suburbs exist now, and the issue is, if you want to visit your friend in another suburb, or get a job, or whatever else one does in a suburb, you'll need to get a train to the city, get onto the underground, or have to get through the congested streets, and then get another train out of the city on the other side, which meant the underground got very crowded and road traffic was very bad. And this is where the cross-city railway comes in. By connecting all the suburban lines, you remove the need for them to spend time turning around in the city, freeing up space in the big terminus stations, and for London, with its many separate mainline termini, this makes a lot of sense. It was right after World War II, when everything was destroyed, and there was lots of building new things going on, that this idea began to gain traction. After seeing how successful Paris's Réseau Express Régional was, or RER, at fixing basically the same problem that London had, London thought that they should do the same. So how can we put together a cross-city route without building too much new stuff? Because as the Elizabeth line has shown us, tunnels aren't cheap. Right. From King's Cross to Moorgate, there are two tracks next to the Metropolitan line, the widened line, in orange here, but also the Snow Hill Tunnel in red, built by the London, Chatham and Dover Railway from Farringdon to the Holborn Viaduct. Now, the history of the railways in this area is a bit complicated, so I'll skip a few things to keep it simple. This north-south connection existed from 1886 until 1916, when passenger trains stopped, as the trams came and stole passengers. Then in the 1960s, the freight stopped, and in the 70s, the tracks were ripped up, until the late 1980s, when the Thameslink program started. This is when it was decided that it was finally time for a cross-city railway, and a north-south one was a priority. So in 1982, things got started with the electrification of the Midland Main Line, although only as far as Bedford. This gave us a service from Bedford to St Pancras, then into the widened lines to Moorgate. It wasn't until 1988 that the Snow Hill Tunnel got reopened, and this was a huge success, with many passengers using it. Shortly after, in 1990, a new alignment was built that dropped steeply downwards after Blackfriars to a newly built station under the ground, City Thameslink, with the tracks through the unused Ludgate Hill station closing. And in 2007, the King's Cross Thameslink station was closed and replaced with a station under St Pancras, as it would have been too hard to extend the platforms at King's Cross Thameslink. Then a few other stations got rebuilt to increase capacity. Then a few
Now approaching platform 4 does not stop here.
Then a few other stations got rebuilt to increase capacity. And in the core, that's the Thameslink we have today. I'm not going to explain the entire service history or the different operators, as it isn't that interesting, but today Thameslink has ended up with lots of services, and this is where it's so different from other cross-city railways. There's just so many different routes and service patterns, all sharing this one to another 700. I mean, should I be surprised? Just talking about how many services there are. Anyway, there's just so many different routes and service patterns, all sharing this one tunnel. On the Midland Main Line, there's services to St Albans and to Luton in Bedford. Then on the East Coast Main Line, services go much further, all the way to Peterborough and Cambridge, with a few ending earlier. All of these come together in London, sharing the cross-city tunnel, the core, with trains every 2 or so minutes between St Pancras and Blackfriars, before the service splits again in the south, some trains running the Sutton Loop in both directions, trains to Sevenoaks and sometimes Orpington, and out to Rainham via Dartford, with all the other services going various distances down the Brighton main line through Gatwick, and some going all the way to Brighton. But with so many different services from so many different lines, Thameslink is quite prone to delays, as any incident on any of these lines will quickly begin affecting all the other branches, and then all the other trains in the southeast, which is why some of the stations in the core see so many delayed trains. But anyway, that's all the Thameslink routes. Let's talk about the trains now. Right from the start, there were a few 317s. However, these only ran down the widened lines to Moorgate, before that got closed, as they weren't dual voltage. Trains on the south side of the core used third rail, and on the north side used OLE, meaning Thameslink trains would need both a pantograph and a third rail chew. But the 317s only had a pantograph, so they didn't see any of the routes on the southern side of the river, and were gone by 2009, when they were sent to Greater Anglia. It was the 319s that ran most of Thameslink's services. These were dual voltage trains built in the late 80s, but I'll save the details for a video on the Class 319. Later on, these were joined by some Class 377s from Southern for additional capacity, and with delays to the 700s being built, the 387s got ordered, entering service in 2014. And by 2018, the 700s were ready, so the 387s got moved over to Great Northern, replacing the 365s, and most of the 319s got scrapped or sent to London North Western Railway and Northern. And with that, Thameslink is now only run with 8 or 12 coach Class 700s, and not a lot of people like the 700s for several reasons, especially the seats, which caught cold the ironing boards. But I think the issue isn't actually with the trains, at least for the most part, but rather the service they operate. The issue is that Thameslink operates a lot of different types of service with the same trains. Suburban services around London, bringing people into and out of the city, a metro service within London connecting different lines and being used for short trips within the centre, but also long intercity runs like from Brighton to Cambridge, which spend lots of time on the fast lines, not stopping very frequently. And this is what makes the service so weird. It's trying to do all three things at once, and it's almost impossible to design a good train for all of these service types, which is why we've ended up with the 700s not being perfect for any of their routes, especially the longer routes with hard, durable seats, definitely a bit too hard, flip seats, and lots of standing room, especially by the doors, which are huge, and big open gangways. Yeah, they've got a first class, which is often unused anyway and has people standing in it, luggage racks as they serve Luton and Gatwick airports, and flip tables, which I actually like, and the nastiest toilets I've been in. Toilets and suburban services do not go well together, but that's a discussion for another day. But these are certainly not good long-distance trains, not being very comfortable, as for quick urban services, we need lots of standing room to allow as many people as possible to fit onto the train. Okay, maybe not this extreme, we still need seats, but in order to squeeze as much capacity out of the train as we can, those remaining seats need to be smaller and therefore not as comfortable. Then big doors to allow people on and off as easily and quickly as possible. However, these aren't great for longer distance services, which would have lots of big, spacious, comfortable seats, and the toilets, luggage space, and doors placed as far from the passengers as possible to maximize comfort, which is why in most intercity trains you see the doors at the very ends of the coaches.
Please stand
Right.
well clear of the edge of platform 4.
But yeah, we definitely can't have that through the very busy Thameslink core. So ideally what would happen after this 222 passes is we cut back Thameslink to something more simple, allowing us to get a proper urban service, like some of the S-Bahn services in Germany, which run as basically a bigger, faster metro, sort of all Thameslink needs to be, and a bit closer to what the Elizabeth line is. But the reason that this hasn't happened, and probably can't be done, is that Thameslink and the Elizabeth line are literally the only railways crossing London. Aside from that one southern service to Watford that uses the West London line, you can't get from the south of London to the north of London without using Thameslink, or changing trains several times. And this is why these longer routes need to exist, as otherwise these towns and cities around London wouldn't be well connected with each other and would make the railways in the southeast even more London-centric than they already are. Putting these longer distance services through the Thameslink core causes problems, as we just discussed. So how could this be fixed without sacrificing connectivity for these other cities? Back to Germany for a second, because the main east-west railway in Berlin, built back in the 1920s, has done this very well. They've got 4 tracks on their cross-city route, 2 for the S-Bahn services and another 2 for long-distance and intercity trains. This allows both services to operate independently, with different stock, and with physically different lines, which helps reduce the impact of delays coming from different places, which is probably important for Germany. But also, this setup gives a lot more capacity because, well, you have another 2 tracks now. So for Thameslink, the best solution would be another cross-city tunnel for long-distance trains, but realistically that's never going to happen, as it would simply cost way too much, especially building in London, and isn't really high on the list of things that need to get built. So for now, all we can do is cram as many trains as we can through the core, with special signaling and automatic train operation, so basically prioritizing the very busy London routes and hoping that everyone else doesn't mind too much. Then also, maybe we should try to get some services avoiding London altogether, like this thing. But in my opinion, the easiest fix is to just add a bit more padding on the seats, like not even the 319s were this bad, or even some other suburban trains. Like, if the S-Stock can have good padding, surely the 700s can. But aside from that, we're stuck with a less than ideal interior on the 700s. There isn't a lot we can do about that, but
The train now approaching platform 4.
Bro, I'm
does not
almost
stop
done.
here.
There isn't a lot we can do about that, but what you can do is join our Discord server if you're interested. Link in description, and yeah, that's almost all about Thameslink. That's all for today, and I'll see you next time. Maybe this wasn't the best idea to record at the station. I don't know. We'll see. If you like it, let me know.